It all started with a routine biology project. Nothing that should have unraveled my entire life. Just one of those boring, fill-in-the-chart assignments about blood types and genetics. Our teacher, Mrs. Coffey, stood at the front of the room with a plastic box full of test kits, smiling like she was about to hand out party favors. "This is how scientists determine blood types," she said, as she passed the kits row by row. "It's all in the antibodies, reactions, and what's inherited from your parents." I wasn't even paying that much attention. I was too busy texting Ao, my best friend. Or maybe ex-best friend now. We hadn't spoken properly since the last group project. But at that moment, none of it mattered. I pricked my finger like everyone else, placed a tiny drop of blood on the 3 tiny test pads, and waited. 2 dots turned dark. The third didn't. A+, I marked on my paper. Easy. At the end of class, I handed it in and was halfway out the door when Mrs. Coffey called after me. "F. Can I see you for a moment?" I froze. The other students streamed past me, laughing, calling out to friends, their sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. I stepped back into the now empty classroom, my stomach tight. "Yes, ma'am." She held up my sheet, lips pursed. "You wrote A+. Are you sure?" "Yes," I said. 2 agglutinated, 1 didn't. "That's A+, right?" She nodded slowly, almost reluctantly. "Yes, that's correct." "But, your parents? They're both type O, aren't they?" I think so. It's genetically impossible for 2 O-type parents to have an A+ child," she said, her voice gentle but firm. It felt like she'd hit me with a textbook. "Are you sure about their blood types?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "I remember because your father was my student years ago," she said. "He donated blood during the school drive." "O positive." "And your mother, she helped organize it, also O." "Maybe I got it wrong," I said quickly. "Maybe I tested it wrong." "Perhaps. But it's worth asking them. Sometimes families don't share everything right away." Her words were loaded. Deliberate. She knew something. Or thought she did. I left school in a fog, walking past the usual chaos of vendors, honking danfos, and chattering students. Everything felt suddenly distant, unreal, like the world had gone slightly out of focus. That night at dinner, I couldn't concentrate. Mama served egusi soup, my favorite, but I barely touched it. "F, are you all right?" Baba asked. I looked up from my untouched bowl. "What's your blood type, Baba?" He raised an eyebrow. "O positive." "Why? And Mama?" She glanced at him before answering. "Same. O positive." I hesitated. "That means I should be O2, right? Not A." They both froze. Not dramatically. Not in a way most people would notice. But I saw it. A crack in their perfect calm. "Where is this coming from?" Baba asked, tone sharpening. "School project," I said, voice low. Mama reached across the table, placing her hand over mine. Her fingers were trembling. "F, we love you. That's all that matters." That was not an answer. I pushed my chair back. My appetite was gone. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly, shadows playing across the cracked white paint. My mind wouldn't stop spinning. I replayed the conversation with Mrs. Coffey, the way Mama's hand trembled, Baba's silence. I felt like I'd stumbled into the beginning of a story I wasn't supposed to read. By midnight, I got out of bed and began searching. I checked the storage box in the top of Mama's wardrobe. It was full of old photo albums and greeting cards. But the earliest photos of me started when I was 3. There were none from the hospital. None of a newborn. No hospital bracelet. No birth certificate. I crept into the living room and checked the file cabinet. There were documents for Boba's business, Mama's church records, even AO's school receipts. But my birth certificate. Missing. I felt something cold and heavy settle in my chest. Like a truth I wasn't ready for was about to make itself known. The next day, I skipped school. I wandered through town, my feet taking me to the old market, the one we rarely visited since Mama preferred the supermarket. I didn't know what I was looking for. A sign, maybe. Anything that would make this feeling make sense. And that's when I saw her. She was across the road, standing outside a fruit stall. She turned just as I passed, and our eyes locked. She looked exactly like me. Same height. Same build. Same deep-set eyes. And on her cheek, a faint birthmark. The same one I had. A dark crescent, like a shadowed moon. She stared like she'd seen a ghost. I froze. She crossed the street slowly, cautiously. "What's your name?" she asked. "F," I said, voice trembling. Her eyes widened. My daughter was named F. But she was taken from me. My knees almost gave out. She handed me a card before I could ask more. "Please. Come see me. We need to talk." I watched her walk away, feeling the world tilt again. I clutched the card like a lifeline. On it was a name, Fola Edideo. And a number. I had a feeling this woman knew the truth. The truth my parents wouldn't tell me. The truth I wasn't ready for, but needed to hear. I didn't call her that night. I couldn't. I wasn't ready. But I did research. I looked up her name. She ran a local health NGO and had once been a midwife at a maternity clinic just outside town. She had a daughter who went missing over a decade ago. The case was reported, but no suspect was ever found. It disappeared quietly, as many cases involving poor women did. And that's when I realized, I was that case. The next morning, I met her at the address she gave. A modest, 2-room office above a tailoring shop. She opened the door before I knocked, like she'd been waiting. Inside, everything felt familiar. The smell of lavender. A picture of a younger Fola holding a toddler. Me. Same eyes. Same smile. She sat across from me, hands folded tightly. "I was 17 when I had you. My mother disowned me, and the clinic was supposed to help. But someone took you. Told me you didn't survive." I felt tears prick my eyes. My throat closed. "And you believe I'm your daughter?" I asked. "I know you are," she said. I never stopped looking. Not for a day. And in that moment, I knew too. Everything began to make sense. The late adoption. The missing certificate. The fear in Mama's eyes. I was never theirs to begin with. But now, I had a choice. I didn't tell Mama and Baba where I was going. How could I? I didn't even know what I would say if they asked. The truth was too big for one conversation, too tangled to explain without everything unraveling. So I said I had a group project and left the house early on Saturday morning with my backpack and a notebook I hadn't touched in weeks. But this wasn't schoolwork. This was my life, cracking open. Fola's apartment was in a quiet neighborhood near the university, tucked between a narrow street of townhouses with peeling paint and bougainvillea vines that spilled over high fences. She opened the door before I knocked, like she'd been watching from the window. This time, I noticed everything. The slight tremble in her hands. The way her eyes scanned my face, hungry for something familiar. A smile. A gesture. A word. I stepped inside. The air was cool and scented with hibiscus. On the walls were framed certificates, midwifery, public health, community service, and dozens of photos. Most were of children. Some were of her, smiling beside women in hospitals and shelters. But one wall held only 3 pictures. A baby, swaddled in blue. A toddler with short braids and wide eyes. A 5-year-old girl with a birthday cake. That's all I had, she said quietly. Before they told me you were gone. I stood in front of the pictures, my breath catching. It was me. Younger, yes, but unmistakably me. The same eyes, same hairline, same birthmark. Do you want to know everything? She asked. I nodded. She led me to the couch and began to speak. Her voice was steady, but her eyes shimmered. She was 17, she said. Pregnant and abandoned. Her boyfriend had disappeared when he found out. Her mother refused to let her stay. A distant cousin connected her to a charity-run maternity clinic. It wasn't fancy, but it was supposed to be safe. They were kind. At first, she said. They gave me food. A place to stay. Promised they'd help me finish school once the baby came. I listened, frozen. I gave birth to you late at night. Complications. I lost too much blood. I passed out. When I woke up, they told me you didn't make it. Her voice broke on that last word. She wiped her face quickly, ashamed of the emotion. I didn't believe it. Not really. I begged to see you. They said you were already buried. That it was policy. No records, no contact. Just, gone. My chest ached. I tried to sue. To report it. But who would believe a broke teenage girl with no family? The clinic shut down 2 years later. But by then, you were already gone. Gone where? I asked, barely able to speak. She looked at me, her expression raw. I think someone sold you. The room went silent. My skin turned cold. Sold. To a couple. Maybe from a waiting list. Maybe under the table. It happens more than you think. Especially when the mother has no one. No voice. I tried to breathe but my lungs wouldn't listen. I searched hospitals, orphanages, records. 4 years. Then I stopped. For my sanity. But this year, I started again. Something told me you were out there. She showed me a notebook, filled with clippings, notes, photos, maps. A private investigation that had spanned over a decade. And there, near the back, was a school photo. Me. From last year. I found this online. A local school published a student spotlight. It was your name. Your face. I knew. So you followed me. She didn't deny it. I watched for weeks. I was scared. What if I was wrong? What if they fought me? But then I saw the mark on your cheek. And I knew. We sat there for what felt like hours. She told me about her life. The jobs she took to survive. The clinic she built for women like her. The way she carried my memory like a wound that never healed. And I listened. At some point, I started to cry. Not loud. Not messy. Just slow, silent tears that wouldn't stop. Because even though I had a home, parents, a life, I had been stolen. And now I had 2 mothers. I didn't know what to do after that. I walked around town for hours, my thoughts louder than the traffic, louder than the street vendors shouting over baskets of mangoes and fabric rolls. When I got home, Mama was waiting. Where were you? She asked. I stood in the doorway. Who am I? Her eyes filled with fear. Tell me the truth, I said. Or I'll never speak to you again. She sat down slowly. Her face looked older than I remembered. You were never supposed to find out, she whispered. But I did. We couldn't have children, she said. We tried for years. Prayed. Fasted. Then someone told us about a girl who had a baby but couldn't keep it. Did you know she was told I died? Her head dropped. We didn't ask. We didn't want to. We were desperate. So you took me. We thought we were saving you. Giving you a better life. I laughed, harsh and bitter. You stole me. We loved you. You lied. Would you rather have grown up in a shelter? On the street? I would rather have grown up with the truth. The room was silent. Then I walked away. I didn't go to my room. I went back to Fola's. And for the first time, I slept peacefully. Because I knew who I was now. But I also knew this story wasn't over. I woke up in a room that smelled like new beginnings. Fola's guest room was small but warm, with peach-colored curtains that filtered the morning light into soft gold. A folded blanket rested at the foot of the bed. On the nightstand was a glass of water, a note in her looping handwriting, "Take your time. I'll be in the kitchen." I sat up slowly, unsure of how I felt. The night before, I had cried myself to sleep, not out of sadness, exactly, but a strange, twisting mix of grief, anger, and relief. I had finally found the truth. But it had come with a cost. I followed the smell of stew into the kitchen, where Fola stood stirring a pot. She was humming to herself, a lullaby I half remembered from dreams. It stopped when she noticed me. "Good morning," she said. I nodded. "Morning. Hungry?" I shrugged. I could eat. She served me a bowl of yam porridge, steaming and fragrant. I didn't know how to say thank you, so I ate in silence. She sat across from me, sipping tea. "You didn't have to come back," she said after a while. I didn't know where else to go. Her eyes softened. "You can always come here. This is your home too." The word home hit me harder than I expected. I looked down at my bowl. "I want to know for sure," I said. "We need to do a DNA test." She nodded. "I thought you'd say that. I already called a clinic. They'll do it discreetly. We can go today." The clinic was on the edge of town, hidden behind tall palms and a faded blue gate. Inside, the receptionist greeted Fola by name. They took us to a private room, where a nurse explained the process, 2 swabs, one from me, one from her. No pain. Just answers. As the nurse labeled the tubes, she looked at me and smiled. "You look like her," she said. Fola smiled too, but it was cautious. Hopeful. Like she'd been hurt by hope before. The test would take a few days. "We'll call you," the nurse said. On the drive home, I stared out the window, watching the streets blur by, markets, motorbikes, schoolchildren in green uniforms. Life moved on, indifferent to the fact that mine had just changed forever. "Do you want to tell them?" Fola asked quietly. I knew who she meant. Mama and Baba. "They already know," I said. "They just never thought I'd find out." At school, the whispers had already started. Aya was waiting for me at the gate, arms folded, face unreadable. "You skipped 2 days," she said. "Yeah. And now everyone's talking." "Let them talk." What's going on?" I looked at her, the friend who'd known me since we were kids. Who'd fought with me, laughed with me, carried my secrets. So I told her. Everything. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she hugged me tight. I'm sorry, she whispered. That's a lot. It is. But you're not alone. Okay. You still have me. I nodded against her shoulder. For the first time in days, I felt steady. At home, at my other home, Mama was waiting again. This time, she didn't ask questions. She just stood in the doorway, eyes rimmed red. We got your letter, she said. I had left it before I ran. A single page, folded neatly. The truth. And we understand. That surprised me. You're still our daughter, she said. Even if we didn't bring you into this world. We raised you. We loved you. We made mistakes, but that part is real. I swallowed hard. I don't know how to feel. You don't have to. Just feel it all. And take your time. She stepped aside, letting me in. The house smelled like fried plantain. Like memories. I walked past her into the living room. Nothing had changed. Everything had changed. 3 days later, the clinic called. Fola and I sat together in her living room, her hand in mine as the nurse gave us the results. 99.98% match. She dropped the phone and started to cry. I held her, heart pounding. It was real. I was hers. And now, a new chapter could begin. But first, I had questions. About my adoption. About the people who took me. About how many other girls like me were out there. Fola met my eyes. We're going to find out. Because truth wasn't just about where you came from. It was about who you chose to become. When someone steals your beginning, you start by reclaiming the proof. The morning after the DNA test results arrived, Fola and I sat in her modest living room, surrounded by notebooks, legal pads, and a borrowed laptop. The fan overhead hummed softly, slicing the humid air into manageable pieces. Outside, children's laughter rang from the street below. But inside, we were chasing ghosts. We'll need to request your birth records, Fola said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. If they even exist, I muttered. They exist. Somewhere. Someone wanted you hidden, not erased. We just need to dig. Fola had always wanted to be a lawyer before she became a midwife. She told me that the two were closer than people thought. Both meant fighting for life, in different ways. Today, I believed her. We started at the registry. The government building downtown was a beehive of noise and queues. Ao came with us, saying she had nothing better to do, but I knew it was more than that. She didn't want me to face the past alone. Fola approached the counter with confidence. We're looking for birth records from 17 years ago. The clerk, a woman with sharp glasses and a sharper frown, barely looked up. You'll need an affidavit, an ID, and a processing fee. We're not sure if the name on the certificate will match her current identity, Fola added. The woman finally looked at me. Adopted. Stolen, I said. That made her pause. She gave us a form and told us to wait. While we waited, Fola explained how some clinics, especially underfunded or corrupt ones, would process birth documents off the books or under assumed names, particularly when desperate families or illegal adoptions were involved. 2 hours later, the clerk returned with a yellowing folder. This was the only entry from that clinic on the date you gave, she said. The certificate was handwritten. Name, F, no surname. Mother, Fola Adalik. Father, unknown. It's you, Fola whispered. Her hand trembled as she traced the lines with her finger. It was real. I was real. We paid for copies and stepped into the sun, squinting at the sudden brightness. I felt like I had aged 10 years in one morning. Back home, we built a timeline. From the day I was born to the day Fola was told I had died. We mapped out the names of doctors, nurses, administrators. We searched for clinic records, donor lists, staff rosters. Some were dead. Some had vanished. But one name stood out, Sister Agnes. She was the head nurse, Fola said. She was kind, but strict. I remember her well. Do you know where she is now? Fola frowned. Last I heard, she retired to a church convent in Ibadan. We had our next destination. The drive to Ibadan took half a day. We rented a small car, packed water and snacks, and took turns playing music from our phones. I watched the landscape shift, from city towers to rust-red roads, from dense traffic to sleepy villages tucked behind mango trees. The convent sat on a hill, surrounded by jacaranda trees. The nuns welcomed us politely but cautiously. When we asked for Sister Agnes, their smiles faded. She doesn't receive many visitors, one of them said. She's not well. We insisted. An elderly woman in a grey habit met us in a sun-dappled garden. Her face was lined, her back hunched, but her eyes were still sharp. I remember her, she said, pointing at Fola. You gave birth to a beautiful child. We were told she passed. Who told you? I asked. The matron. And a man who came with adoption papers. What man? I don't know. He had government badges. Said it was all authorized. That the girl's mother had signed consent. I never did, Fola said quietly. Sister Agnes shook her head slowly. I always wondered. It never felt right. She handed us a small file sheet kept against policy, she said. A single page, an internal note about a private transfer approved by the matron and a man named Chief Olayemi. He used to run the adoption arm of the ministry, she added. Before he retired. Back in Lagos, we dug deeper. The name led us to a compound in Lekki, a mansion guarded by stone lions and a wrought iron gate. We weren't invited in. But I wasn't leaving without answers. I left a letter at the gate. You don't know me, but I know you were there the day my mother was told I was dead. I want to know why. I want the truth. I'll wait. A week passed. Nothing. Then a text. Come alone. I went. Fola begged me not to, but I had to. I had to know. The house smelled like old money and older secrets. Chief Olayemi was in a study lined with books and whiskey bottles. He was old now, but not weak. You're her, he said, barely surprised. Why did you do it? Because people paid. Because your mother had no one. Because in this country, desperation is currency. You stole me. I made sure you were placed in a good home. That doesn't make it right. He sighed. No. It doesn't. I pulled out my phone. You're going to confess. On record. And what will you do with it? Tell the world. He didn't stop me. He just poured a drink and spoke into the camera. A full confession. That night, we posted it anonymously. The story went viral. Hashtags. Outrage. Other families came forward. And just like that, a stolen girl became the start of a movement. The day after the confession video went viral, the world seemed to be spinning faster than I could keep up. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, messages from strangers, journalists, even people claiming to know something about my past. For the first time, I was no longer invisible. Fola sat beside me on the faded couch, her hands folded calmly in her lap. She looked tired, but her eyes held the same fierce determination that had pulled me through the darkest days. We need to find your birth mother, she said quietly, breaking the heavy silence between us. She deserves to know you're alive. And you deserve to know her. I swallowed hard. The idea of meeting the woman who had given me life, then lost me, was terrifying. What if she rejected me? What if she had moved on? Or worse, what if she was dead? Fola reached over and squeezed my hand. I know it's scary. But we'll take it one step at a time. Tracing a name. My birth certificate was sparse, but it gave us a starting point, just a name, Amina. It was a common name, but I held onto it like a lifeline. Fola used her connections to access hospital records and social services archives. It was slow going, most of the files were handwritten or misfiled. Days passed in a blur of phone calls and paperwork. Then, a breakthrough, a file marked, Amina Baligan, age 38 at the time of my birth, with a record of giving birth at the same clinic. No adoption papers listed under her name. Just a note that she had left the hospital early, against medical advice. Amina Baligan. The name echoed in my mind. Meeting Ayo's cousin. While we followed the trail of official records, Ayo, my closest friend, made a call of her own. She told me her cousin worked in social services and might have access to more detailed records. The next day, her cousin, Tand, met us at a cafe. Tand was a slim man with sharp eyes and a gentle manner. The government isn't always honest with adoption cases, he said. Sometimes records are lost on purpose. He pulled out a manila folder. Here are some old case notes related to Amina Baligan. Nothing conclusive, but it shows she was under surveillance for poverty and possible neglect. No confirmed death or abandonment. The word stung. Letters unopened. Back at home, I found an old, yellowed envelope hidden in Fola's drawer, addressed to me, but never opened. Inside was a letter from Amina, written in shaky handwriting. I'm so sorry I couldn't keep you, it read. The world was too harsh, and I was too weak. If you find this, know I love you more than anything. Tears blurred my vision. This letter was a bridge across the years, a whisper from a mother who had never stopped thinking of me. The first meeting. With Tan's help, we arranged a meeting with Amina. It was set for a quiet park near the edge of the city. I arrived early, heart pounding. When she walked toward me, she was smaller than I imagined, with deep lines etched by hardship but eyes still bright with life. She said softly. I nodded. She reached out, and for the first time, I felt the warmth of a mother's touch, shaky, but real. Two mothers. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Fola welcomed Amina into our home, cautiously at first. The two women who had shaped my life met over shared meals, tears, and stories. It was complicated. Fola had raised me, loved me, and protected me. Amina had given me life but lost me to circumstances beyond her control. Together, they forged a fragile bond, two mothers, one truth. Questions and answers. I asked Amina about the day I was born, about why she left the hospital, about what had happened after. She told me of poverty, of threats from family, of fear for my safety. I wanted to keep you, she said. But they said I couldn't. They took you away while I was asleep. Moving forward. As the media frenzy settled, I realized my journey was far from over. But with both mothers by my side, I felt stronger. My identity was no longer a mystery. I was the girl who was stolen, found, and finally whole. The reunion with Amina stirred more than just relief, it dredged up memories and shadows neither of us were ready to face. After days filled with tentative conversations and awkward silences, I realized that uncovering the past was like peeling layers off a wound, raw, painful, but necessary for healing. Unseen enemies. One evening, as the sun dipped behind Lagos's skyline, I noticed a car following me after school. The driver kept a cautious distance but never left my tail. Fear bubbled in my chest. Was this linked to the man, Chief Olayemi, who confessed? Or someone else wanting to keep my story buried? I told Fola and Ao. They vowed to protect me, but the anxiety gnawed at me like a silent predator. Secrets unearthed. With Tan's help, we began digging into Chief Olayemi's network. What we found was a web of corruption, powerful men and women who profited from stolen children and illegal adoptions. Each new fact came with a threat. Anonymous messages warned us to stop. The threat at home. One night, the front door was rattled by heavy knocks. A shadow loomed, but when Fola looked through the peephole, no one was there, only a note slipped under the door. Stop digging, or lose everything. A friend or foe? I began questioning who to trust. Even close friends seemed to act strangely, whispering when I entered the room, avoiding my gaze. Could someone I loved be hiding secrets too? Amina's past revealed. Amina shared her story one rainy afternoon, how she had been coerced into giving me up by threats against her family, how she had fought to find me for years but was silenced. Her strength humbled me. A plan to fight back. We reached out to a journalist known for exposing corruption. She agreed to help, but warned us it would be dangerous. Together, we planned to release the full story, naming names and exposing the network. The night before. On the eve of the expose, I lay awake, wondering if I was ready to face the consequences. But I knew one thing. I would no longer be a victim of my past. The morning light filtered through the blinds, casting long stripes across the worn wooden floor of Fola's living room. Outside, Lagos was awakening, its usual cacophony of sounds mingling with the hope and fear that filled my heart. Today was the day. The day we would expose the truth. Preparing for the storm. The night before, Fola, Ao, Tand, and I had huddled around a laptop, reviewing every piece of evidence, every recorded confession, every document tying Chief Olayemi's network to the stolen children scandal. The journalist, Ada, was set to publish the story on a major news website. She had assured us she had backup plans for safety. Still, the weight of what we were about to do pressed down on me. Facing doubts. Are you sure you want to do this? Fola asked quietly. I nodded. They took my childhood, but they won't take my voice. Ao squeezed my hand. We are with you. The release. At 9 a.m., Ada's article went live. The headline screamed, "The Stolen Children of Lagos, Inside a Dark Network of Corruption." Within minutes, the story spread like wildfire. Immediate fallout. Calls flooded in, from victims, from families searching for their lost children, and from those threatened by the expose. Anonymous emails poured in, some filled with gratitude, others with veiled threats. Public outcry. Protests erupted outside government buildings. Activists demanded accountability. Law enforcement promised investigations. Personal repercussions. But not all the attention was positive. Chief Olayemi's allies retaliated. Fola's clinic received anonymous threats. Ao's family faced intimidation. Strength in unity. Through it all, I found strength in the two women who had shaped my life. Fola's unwavering support and Amina's quiet resilience reminded me that I was not alone. New beginnings. As the dust settled, the government announced reforms in adoption laws. I felt a cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, my story would help others find justice. Reflection. That night, I looked at my reflection, a girl who had been lost but was now found, breaking free from the chains of her past.